Thanks to those of you who have checked out my Patreon, I am able to make a new series of Pokemon Epics, and a big shout out, of course, to the Nerd Therapist. Hey Pokemon Masters, Berkey Patobi here, and this video has been sponsored by DNA and the mobile app game Pokemon Masters. But DNA sent me out a little Pokemon Masters pin. This is the third of these videos this month. DNA have been working very, very closely with me, and thank you to them. And of course, don't forget to use the link at the top of the description to download Pokemon Masters on Google Play or iOS, and join in the fun for yourself. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video, for giving the channel the opportunity. Because of them, I'm going to be able to work on some really big things next year. Also, just getting to play the game early was a lot of fun. I've already done a video about the lore and world of Pokemon Masters and my official review. But after all that was said and done, there is one more segment to Pokemon Masters that I felt was integral to talk about, and that is the co-op. The co-op campaign of Pokemon Masters. Now, you unlock it after, it's either chapter 10 or chapter 13, but out of what they gave me, I mean, it was right at the end. I unlocked the co-op section, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird for a game that's not out yet, because by that point it wasn't out yet. How am I going to make use of this? Luckily, the team at DNA said, well, we've got someone else playing Pokemon Masters early, and that's someone you might know him. His name is Lockstin. Most of you know me through Lockstin's channel anyway, and I was like, yes, we've worked together loads, and some of the big things we're working on next year as a result of Pokemon Masters sponsorship is going to be with Lockstin. I'll tell you all about that. You'll have to wait and see. But yeah, me and Lockstin have worked on loads together, and of course, I got on a call with him and said, right, let's jump in and try out co-op. The co-op mode is a co-op campaign, but there's no story to it. Instead, it's just a sequence of battles. But these battles, well, they're unlike anything in the game previously. As I jumped on the call with Lockstin and we jumped straight into battle, I realized that my team's number one, my team was not as good as any of his teams. My sync pairs were, you know, they were doing all right, they were holding their own, but they were definitely going down before his did. And he began asking me about how much I knew about the metagame of Pokemon Masters, to which I was like, the metagame of Pokemon Masters? He was explaining to me just how deep he had gotten into all of it, learning about all the stats and learning which trainers are the absolute, scientifically, mathematically the best. How some of the trainers are pretty bad on their own, but when teamed up with the right combinations, they are absolutely incredible. I'm sure he's going to do videos on that you will get to see very, very soon, if not already out. And we got to playing, and sure enough, as I mentioned in my gameplay review, while strategy is a big part of Pokemon Masters and learning some basic strategies will really help out in the main campaign, I think the big reason that they leave the co-op multiplayer until the very end of the game for you to unlock is because well, it's a lot more difficult, and it's a lot more complicated, simply because in any given battle, you're not battling with 3 Pokemon. Technically, you're battling with 9. You're 3 and the 3 of your 2 companions. Now, of course, me and Lockstin didn't have a 3rd companion, so we played with the AI. And interestingly, at one point, we all had the exact same sync pair on the field, and it's something very satisfying about seeing Karina congratulate her own victory 3 times over. But given that you've got 3 brains, or in our case, 2 brains and a robot playing at the same time, I was the robot. Given that that's the case, there's room for so many more strategies. For example, one of the good ones that Lockstin was using is that Lockstin had, I think it was Salamence. And Salamence had an Intimidate-like effect, where every time it switched out onto the field, it would lower the opponent's stats. So while I was busy attacking the opponent and distracting the opponent, Lockstin could just keep on switching in and out and continuously lowering their stats. An incredibly broken and powerful thing to do. That was just one of many strategies we tried. Another great one is timing our weaknesses are super effective sync moves. So for example, at one point our enemies were weak to fire and rock type. Their first Pokemon out was weak to rock, their second one was going to be weak to water. I don't have a particularly powerful rock type sync pair, but I do have a powerful water type sync pair with Misty. Lockstin brought in his rock wielders and used his sync move to take out the opponent's Infernape, just in time for them to swap in with a Pokemon that was weak to water. At which point my Starmie then used its sync move. Of course, coordination is key, because if you all time your sync moves up at the same time, you get a unity bonus, which is just like all 3 people using their sync moves at the exact same moment. And of course, it's useful for things like items. I know that Lockstin had better Pokemon than me, but it looked like one of his was going to take some hits and go down, so I threw some potions his way, sacrificing my Pikachu by not using the potions on my own Pokemon, but that way we won the battle. But to be honest, while the gameplay is fun, and I'm looking forward to hopefully conquering all of the co-op campaign, because I think that's where really proving your worth in Pokemon Masters is going to be, that is just one thing that is interesting. It is by far, honestly, all of it is nothing compared to what I believe to be the most fundamentally interesting and fun part with playing with friends in co-op. And that is seeing which Pokemon trainers they've unlocked. Obviously, through playing the main story, both me and Lockstin had a roster of characters that we had unlocked that were part of the campaign. However, because there was a luck-based element to unlocking some of the other characters with the Poryphone, he ended up with a roster of characters that were pretty interesting, and I ended up with a roster of characters that were pretty interesting. I, throughout the whole game, really wanted to unlock some of the Johto characters like Chris, who we've only seen once in Crystal, or some of those Gen 2 Elite Four members like Karen and Will. Lockstin had unlocked all of those characters and hadn't unlocked some of my ones, and I think there's something really, really fun about just seeing what trainers they've unlocked and asking them, hey, what happened in their sync pair story? Did anything else interesting happen? Lockstin actually very kindly recorded some of the gameplay of him interacting with the characters that I hadn't unlocked and seeing their sync pair stories. And yeah, I think the rest of this video is just going to be a here's what I discovered more lore stuff, because this is the stuff that interests me the most about Pokemon Masters, is then getting to talk about this stuff with my friends. Like, for example, when I saw him use Bugsy in battle, I thought that was cool, and then Bugsy mega evolved Beedrill. And you might be like, that's not a big deal, but the thing is, Bugsy and Karen, who also did the exact same for her Houndoom, these trainers, they haven't been in the game since Mega Evolution has been a thing. There hasn't been a Gen 2 remake in this time. These characters haven't shown back up. And so suddenly we're expanding on these characters' lore and story, and apparently Bugsy's legs, because did Bugsy get really, really tall? Or has Bugsy just always had socks for days? Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is there was some cool expanded bits of lore, and I'm going to start, of course, with Chris, who talks a little bit about Pokemon professors and things that they specialize in. And one of the things that she mentions that's really, really interesting to me, she mentions how Professor Oak went one way and how Agatha went another. Agatha is an Elite Four member from Kanto who has some history with Professor Oak. I think the fan base, we always kind of assume that there's some kind of like ex-romance gone wrong there. She talks about how he used to be a handsome young man, but he's just an old coot fiddling with his Pokedex. Was Agatha training to be a Pokemon professor at one point alongside Oak? Like, it's just weird that Chris is bringing up Agatha in that context. And where did she learn that information? I wouldn't have known this if I didn't play Pokemon Masters alongside a friend, and I've yet to see all the characters, so I'm looking forward to playing with more friends and asking them, you know, what characters have you unlocked? Have you unlocked this one? Can I see what they say? Rourke, a gym leader from Sinnoh, I expected to mention Byron at some point. After all, Byron is Rourke's father. However, Rourke doesn't mention that. In fact, Rourke mentioned something much more interesting about how they once tried to dig a tunnel under Sinnoh and the tunnel collapsed, but that's very much likely to be a reference towards the Sinnoh Underground. So did Rourke help construct the Sinnoh Underground? Is that what they're referencing? The Psychic Elite Four member Will talks about a trainer that once beat them, how they thought they were unstoppable. They were undefeatable by anyone other than the champion, until a trainer came along not long after they joined the Pokemon League and completely destroyed them. Of course, the trainer that they're referencing is Gold, or possibly Chris. Lockstin had unlocked the character of Gardenia, who talks about how scared she is of ghost stories. She's scared of ghosts, she hates hearing ghost stories, and that makes sense, because she lives next to Eterna Forest, where there is the old chateau. And actually, when you first go to the old chateau, you first have to talk to Gardenia, who is very scared of the ghosts that she hears lives in there. The Dragon Master Drake, this is where Lockstin got his Salamence from, and he talks about how Drake mentions in his Sync Pair story about how he used to sail with Mr. Briny, which actually makes sense. That's part of the lore, it's part of the very well-hidden backstory of the Hoenn region. Again, we get to see the dedication at which DNA have crafted this game. Lieutenant Surge talks about Voltorb and soldiers in the field of battle, which again references to Pokemon War. Or Wickstrom, or is it Wilkstrom? The Knight from Kalos is said to be part of and descended from this royal family of Kalos. And yeah, amazingly, they even put inside characters in there like Cheryl. Cheryl's Chansey is a Blissey now, and on your day out with her doing the Sync Pair thing, you get hurt and she heals you up, which is exactly what she does when you go through Eterna Forest with her in the Sinnoh games. So yeah, while doing the gameplay was fun, and there is some intense strategy in there that I am going to have to wrap my head around if I want to be the very best, if I truly want to be a Pokemon master. Well, there's a lot in there. My favourite part about co-op is talking to other Pokemon trainers, talking to other Pokemon masters, about their journeys through the game. Who did they unlock? What stories have they learned about the trainers that they've interacted with, and what have been their favourite teams to work with? Suddenly, I got to team up with Lockstin and this AI robot, and employ the strategies that I had learned about my specific characters, and team them up with the strategies that Lockstin had learned about his specific characters. That made the co-op of the game incredibly refreshing to me. This video has been been sponsored by DNA and Pokemon Masters. I just can't recommend it enough. There is a link at the top of the description. It will take you to the Google Play or iOS store. You can download the game now. It's totally free. It is a ton of fun, and you get to learn so much about the world of Pokemon. If you like my channel, then I can't imagine that you wouldn't like the game, at least enough to explore the characters. Get involved, learn about your favorite Pokemon Masters, maybe become a Pokemon Master yourself there in the game. Thank you so much to DNA for supporting the channel. I've been enjoying the game thoroughly. I am filming this before the game is officially out on release, and so I'm going to be, by the time you're seeing this, I'm sure I have played the game much, much more. Thank you for watching. Click that link, and of course, so hi Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master.